1987 was a very busy year for the fledgling shootboxing promotion. Though the small Japanese company had sanctioned competition since the year of its founding, 87 seemed to shift its showtime schedule into overdrive, promoting a series of at least 7 cards from January to December. The last of these was a special event. Shootboxing had and would always seek to attract a diverse talent pool, but this may have been the first time that the promotion fully embraced the practice of international competition. The Ishukaku Togizan 7 event was also called 5 vs 5, Shootboxing vs Martial Arts Canada. As the name implies, the show featured showdowns between the young shootboxing elite and members of Labatt's full-contact karate team, representing Canada. The date was December 5, 1987, and the venue the Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. Before we dive into the matches, a quick overview. The shootboxing promotion, also called the Japan Shootboxing Association, was founded by Tomofumi Murata, better known by his stage name Takeshi Caesar. Caesar was a national kickboxing champion turned professional wrestler, closely affiliated with the legendary Satoru Sayama and the short-lived Universal Wrestling Federation. While training and performing for the UWF, Takeshi conceived of a style of stand-up competition that mixed traditional kickboxing with the shoot wrestling style pioneered by Sayama. The result was shootboxing, also called standing Vale Tudo. This novel fighting style permitted striking and clinch fighting, as well as throws, takedowns, and standing submissions such as chokeholds and joint locks. Having been established prior to Japanese kickboxing's commercial resurgence and the rise of mixed martial arts, shootboxing faced an uphill battle for prominence in a small market already occupied by established promotions, but its unique rules helped to quickly secure a niche audience. Caesar also infused his promotion with pro wrestling's penchant for theatrical flair, not only making colorful tights the standard uniform for his competitors, but encouraging a hitherto unseen degree of discretion when it came to observing match rules and in-ring conduct. Though this changed over time as the company grew more mainstream, shootboxing survived its early days partially through its reputation as the outlaw promotion, an unpredictable, maverick establishment in a time when the sport was considered increasingly pedestrian. The show opens with a preliminary match under a handicap stipulation. Katsumi Omura, representing the Cardinal weight class, takes on the Seagull weight division's Rik-seok Lee. The Cardinal weight class corresponds with traditional kickboxing's super featherweight category, and the Seagull weight class is the super lightweight division. Omura represents Caesar's gym and is the slightly more experienced fighter with a record of 7-4 with 3 knockouts, while Lee is 5-4-1, also with 3 knockouts, and represents the Matsukami gym. Disappointingly, I don't have any background information on Lee, but Omura is the promotion's reigning Cardinal weight champion. He may have been the company's very first official title holder, having captured the belt earlier that year. The fact that he's not defending his championship may suggest that a last-minute substitution has taken place, leading to the handicap stipulation. Lee's size should give him a strength advantage, but the handicap has taken the form of a single 10-minute round, potentially making this a test of attrition likely to favor the lighter boxer. This is wholly unique for any kind of kickboxing match, and we will see how it plays out. Lee opens with an opportunistic low kick which Omura promptly repays. The fighters then measure each other, matching their kicks and punches evenly. Lee eventually lands some slapping strikes to the face, but Omura returns with a stiff right. Omura manages to catch his opponent in a front facelock, only for Lee to power out. Displaying no shortage of gall, Lee tries to divert Omura's attention, but the champion's defense holds. Omura then powers forward and holds Lee against the ropes, striking him with knees and uppercuts. Lee escapes with an attempted throw that takes them both down, and shows his frustration by trying to strike Omura on the canvas. The referee doesn't admonish him. Omura loses his balance during a punching exchange, but no knockdown is ruled. He uses his elbow and forearm to block a series of punches, then rushes forward, grabs his opponent, and scores a knockdown with knees to the head. Lee rises and immediately goes on the offensive, only to be caught in a front facelock. Omura sinks some knees and attempts a throw, and even though he doesn't earn a point when both fighters fall down, Lee is still clearly hurt by the maneuver. Sensing weakness, Omura goes after his opponent anew, forcing Lee to cover up against a barrage of knees, and within moments, he goes down again. Lee shows fortitude when he rises again and comes in with punches. He manages to escape another facelock, but takes so many knees in the corner that he resorts to a sloppy suplex to stem the onslaught. With apparently no strategy other than moving forward, he walks into more clinching knees and falls after a big roundhouse kick to the head. Seconds later, a punch sends him down again. The audience cheers his tenacity as he rises, but at this point it only seems like a matter of time before he can't get up again. Audacious till the end, he actually taunts his opponent, which may have been Omura's impetus for kneeing him in the face when they go down in a slip. Lee falls again following more knees. His nose bleeding and his energy spent, he goes down one last time after a roundhouse kick and a rather blatant rabbit punch. At 6 minutes and 36 seconds, the increasingly inevitable comes to pass and Katsumi Omura is declared the winner by knockout. For all his heart and physical advantage, Lee was doomed by the handicap. With the uninterrupted round allowing Omura to ceaselessly exert pressure, Lee's poor defense and lack of strategy primed him for one knockdown after another. Despite its unusual stipulations, this match reveals a lot about the shootboxing standard. The in-ring official is prepared to excuse many fouls, from Lee's theatrical conduct to Omura's blatantly illegal hits. The referee was more concerned with keeping the match going than enforcing rules, but the entire atmosphere of the bout had a degree of lawlessness that is more akin to a pro wrestling match than a competitive sporting endeavor. We also see a level of fighting spirit that is both inspiring and reckless. Not only did shootboxing not observe the 3 knockdown rule, but concession was not part of the culture. Naturally, this led to a standard of very exciting matches, but in retrospect, it likely also contributed to a lot of concussions. We may very well see more of this in the bouts to come. The show proper begins with the commencement of the 5 vs 5 series. There have been some modifications made to the typical shootboxing rules, likely to accommodate the Canadian fighters who weren't as familiar with the sport. Elbow strikes have been prohibited, backward throws are not allowed, and knees may only be thrown to the body and not the head. Additionally, the round requirements have been modified. All rounds are now 5 minutes in length, and this first set of matches will be limited to 2 rounds. The first match is a cardinal weight bout between Japan's Makoto Oi and Canada's Richard Foale. Foale is 7-1 in full contact karate with 6 knockouts, and while I haven't been able to collect any information on him, he's promised a first round knockout. On the other hand, Oi has a fairly detailed and colorful background. He was 13 when he began training at the Super Tiger Gym, where he managed to impress Satoru Sayama with his fighting spirit. He later switched to Caesar's Gym, where opportunity and some light bullying led him to make his professional debut at age 16. The match was an instant classic, with Oi emerging victorious against an older and stronger opponent, and the young man thereby became and remained a fan favorite. He's now 17 years old with a record of 5-1 with 3 knockouts, and he's definitely the favorite to win. Round 1. Oi does the initial damage with a low kick and punches, but he isn't able to complete a headlock takeover. Foale throws a flashy reverse roundhouse kick and tries to remain moving, likely recognizing the peril in locking up with the specialist. He finds himself in a compromised position when Oi grabs both his leg and head, but seems none the worse following a slip. Oi sinks a couple of low kicks that cause Foale to stumble, but Richard lands some decent head strikes. Oi grabs his opponent by the torso, and Foale responds by performing a sort of front headlock throw. It's neither fast nor clean enough to earn a point. Foale takes a defensive position and knocks Oi down for a slip with a countering sidekick. Oi hurts him with subsequent low kicks, and the Canadian uses a spinning backfist to set up a second, less effective throw. Foale changes tactics and comes forward, where he's caught in a headlock but manages to stifle a takeover attempt. Good evasive action from Oi protects him in the corner, and he lands a hard right which stuns Foale and sets him up for a series of punches against the ropes, leading to the first knockdown of the fight. Richard looks dazed when he gets to his feet, and Oi wastes no time in landing more shots to the head to send him down again. I don't know whether Foale was too stunned to react or was trying to bait his opponent, but whatever the case, he's already fallen far behind on the scorecards. Regardless, he's still full of heart and manages to sink a couple of hooks when he meets Oi in the center of the ring. He lands what's thus far the cleanest iteration of his falling throws, but again, I don't think it's counted. Oi certainly doesn't seem troubled by it, and he puts Foale down for the third time with a hard straight to the jaw. Richard is able to make it back to his feet and attempts one more unsuccessful throw before the end of the round. Round 2. Foale is slow to answer the bell but immediately comes in with an attempted spinning backfist. The fighters exchange a mid-kick and a low kick, then go down in a slip. Foale seems to land a low blow on his opponent, but the camera doesn't get a good shot of it. Oi blocks another backfist and connects with a left hook that Foale is able to absorb. Richard throws a spinning back kick and then manages to take his opponent down in a tackle. It's unclear whether this earned him any points, but it elicits applause from the audience. Foale seems to take a low blow that the referee doesn't see, and this probably contributes to his taking the three-punch combination that sends him to the mat again. The crowd definitely expected this to be the end of the fight, and they cheer in both appreciation and excitement when the foreigner rises anew. Foale's cornermen also seem to think the match was over, as they've ascended the apron and look on with concern as their fighter returns to battle. Their worries are justified when Foale's second wind is cut off by a hook from Oi that earns another knockdown. The Canadian is now bleeding from the mouth and is noticeably off point as he engages his opponent, catching several blows to the head before securing a sloppy single-leg takedown. Foale throws a sidekick to the leg and tries to maintain distance with a low spinning heel kick, but Makoto comes right back in with punches. In a show of defiance, Richard Foale removes his traditional black belt, but this doesn't keep him from taking more hooks to the head. His face is a mess and his body a punching bag, but to everyone's surprise, he manages a picture-perfect headlock takeover that definitely earns him a point. He's so exhausted that he falls over the ropes after missing a punch, but promptly lands another takeover that has the audience applauding. Oi hits him with a hard left to the side of the face, and consequently, Foale's third takeover is sloppy and less likely to earn him credit. The round ends only a few seconds later, following an equally sloppy takedown from the Japanese boxer. Shockingly, Richard Foale has managed to go the distance, but it's Makoto Oi who earns the unanimous decision victory. It's a fair verdict, with Oi's knockdowns outnumbering Foale's throws, and while the Canadian deserves credit for his stubbornness and determination, his opponent was always in control of the match. Oi captured the Cardinal weight title about a year and a half later, and even earned world champion status by becoming the ISKA light welterweight champ in 1993. After branching out in pro wrestling, he retired from all competition after 1995, and since then has worked as a coach, commentator, and television personality. For our next match, we move up to the Falcon weight category or super featherweight division. It's Mike Bushby versus Naoyuki Taira. Bushby enters with a solid record of 10-0 with 8 knockouts, but again, this is all I can say about him. His opponent would become one of the most recognizable cult figures of Japanese martial arts, but at this point in his career, Taira is still purely in a formative state. Just days shy of his 24th birthday, the man from Sendai who dreamed of being a pro wrestler had already found some success in karate competition, and would currently be competing in mixed martial arts had the Shuto promotion already boasted a professional division. He seems to have joined Caesar's gym more out of a desire to compete at the highest level than out of any particular calling for shootboxing, but his 5-1 record attests to his natural ability. Taira has already begun earning his reputation as an exciting combatant who draws on a wide arsenal of ostentatious techniques, a tendency which could either help or hurt his opponent, depending on Bushby's ability to deal with the unexpected. Round 1. The fighters start by sparring at medium range, throwing a series of kicks that culminates with Bushby landing an inadvertent low blow, and the crowd laughs at the referee's exaggerated attempts to return Taira to competition. Bushby fights out of a side stance with more kicks and jabs his opponent in the face. A rear chokehold ends in a slip. Taira lands a hard mid-kick but takes some punches as he comes forward. He responds with countering leg strikes, including a knee off the ropes. Bushby catches a left hook to the face and a kick across the torso, but he avoids a showy wheel kick before sinking a sidekick. Taira is finding success by fighting from a distance and throwing strikes at multiple levels, effectively capitalizing on his opponent's lack of familiarity with below-the-waist fighting. However, he kills his own momentum by missing with a rolling thunder. Not one to stop exciting the crowd, he resumes fighting with a flying attack, then surprises Bushby with another thunder kick. Taira gets up and comes forward continually, now using his reach advantage to push Bushby around the ring. Taira is so adrenalized that he isn't perturbed when Bushby lands a straight right to his face. He throws a third rolling thunder which surprises Bushby but nevertheless only lands on his glove. Both fighters are clearly fatigued and miss a series of sloppy, close-range punches before Bushby attempts a failed headlock takeover. Taira seems to get the advantage with a series of head strikes but fails to cash in with yet another thunder kick. He has thoroughly developed a habit of this, attempting the flashy move every time he gets some leverage, but it's such a difficult strike to land that the multiple pauses in the action are probably helping the Canadian. Round 2. Taira traps Bushby in the corner with some punches but eventually gets pushed back with a kick. Naoyuki manages an awkward takedown when he catches Bushby in a chokehold, but I don't think it's counted. Taira sets Bushby on the run, but then an attempted headlock takeover leads to an illegal back suplex from the Canadian that leads to a halt in the action. When the match is resumed, Taira retaliates with a flying kick. After some unsuccessful throw attempts, he finally hits his mark with the rolling thunder, his heel connecting squarely with Bushby's forehead. The Canadian is looking thoroughly less composed as he takes a sidekick and misses with a spinning backfist. Another thunder kick lands on the Canadian fighter's shoulder, to which Bushby responds by stepping on Taira on his way out of the corner. Taira twice tries to land a clean headlock takeover, but the bell rings before he can succeed. The match is over. A unanimous decision victory for Naoyuki Taira doesn't come as any surprise. This wasn't the level of domination seen in the previous 2 bouts, but Taira controlled the match from start to finish. Bushby put up a better fight than his predecessor, and may actually have been better suited to traditional shootboxing rules than this modified version, but he didn't have an answer to either his opponent's repertoire or his aggressiveness. Regardless, this was an exciting and more competitive bout, and probably the most enjoyable so far. Next up is a match in the Seagull weight division, or super lightweight category. It's Kenichi Abe of Caesar's Gym versus Mark Fletcher. We actually get a bit of information on Fletcher, who arrives with a 7-1 record with 6 knockouts. He apparently works as an instructor at a facility called the Martial Arts Fitness Center in Kitchener, which still operates today. His style is Shorin Ryu Karate. Abe is a fellow karate practitioner who's been active in shootboxing throughout the year. At 5-1 with 3 knockouts, he now has the opportunity of establishing himself further with a potential victory over his first foreign opponent. Round 1. Fletcher trades a sidekick for Abe's low kick, but the latter quickly closes the distance to land punches. The Canadian reciprocates, but Abe stands his ground and refuses to budge. Fletcher avoids a tornado of strikes and manages to sink a sidekick. In turn, Abe lays in with low and mid kicks, then scores a knockdown after feinting with a jab and connecting with a hard knee to the midsection. The referee seems to give Fletcher plenty of time to rise without giving a count, but eventually that's what it takes to make him get back up. Abe maintains the pressure and Fletcher soon finds himself in trouble again, holding onto the ropes before another knee strike puts him down again. This time, the guest fighter cannot meet the count, and Kenichi Abe wins via knockout at 1 minute and 58 seconds into the first round. This brief bout was a refreshing change of pace. Abe's no-nonsense approach contrasts with Taira and Oi's more crowd-pleasing style, and Mark Fletcher simply wasn't prepared for it. Abe would prove his staying power in the company with a couple of title reigns, but would go on to make a name for himself in other promotions before retiring. We've reached the semi-main event, in the Falcon weight, super welterweight division. It's Tadakatsu Riki versus Steve Ewald. I believe that this match and the one which follows represent a higher level of competition, with the fighters generally being more decorated and experienced. This is reflected in the format being up to 3 rounds of 5 minutes each, giving the fighters more opportunity to strategize. Riki is 8-6 with 2 knockouts. He rose to prominence in the company through what had and would be a fairly intense rivalry with Takeshi Caesar. They fought twice for the Hawkweight title in '86 and '87, Takeshi prevailing both times but Riki managing to establish himself as one of shootboxing's straightforward heel fighters, taking his cue from pro wrestling villains to become one of the more blatant rule breakers on the roster. His opponent is definitely one of the top horses in Team Canada's stable. Ewald enters as the North American Kickboxing Association's super welterweight champion, and he boasts an unbeaten record of 21 victories with 17 knockouts. While Ewald does seem like a newcomer to the company, he may be the first fighter so far who has experience with below-the-waist rules, thereby leveling what's been an otherwise uneven playing field. Round 1. Riki strikes first with hard low kicks, but Ewald's ability to absorb and return them hints at his advanced skill. That said, Riki still uses them to get the better of the opening exchanges. Ewald tries to maintain distance with sidekicks, but is able to resist his opponent's shoot attempt after Riki manages to close in. The Japanese boxer is the first to go off his feet following a countering sidekick, and even though it's only a slip, the audience is impressed. A second shoot attempt is countered, but Riki manages to sink a couple of knees before wrenching at Ewald's neck with a headlock. The fighters take turns unbalancing each other with low kicks, then Riki avoids a spinning back fist. Ewald connects with a spinning back kick, but it doesn't seem to cause much damage. He kicks Riki in the side of the neck, but again, it isn't enough to hurt him. Riki connects with a back kick of his own, but otherwise chooses to keep his distance, having come to respect his opponent's ability. He catches a back fist to the back of the head and a jab to the face, then retaliates by attempting to knee Ewald in the face during a slip, but the visiting boxer seems unfazed. He throws Riki off of him when the two meet against the ropes and takes a defensive position that nevertheless sees him land a solid body strike and low kick. Riki attempts to make headway with low kicks of his own, likely realizing that he's not about to outbox the foreigner, but finds himself on the receiving end of a takedown after coming in high. He attempts to return the favor, but Ewald sandbags his efforts. Steve repeatedly stifles Riki's attempts to come forward, and seems more than a little confident while circling the ring. Perhaps taking offense to this display, Riki forces him to the canvas and this time succeeds in kneeing him hard in the face as the round ends. This was an extremely exciting and competitive round, and may be the first interval actually won by Team Canada. Let's see if Ewald can maintain the momentum. Round 2. Steve doesn't betray any lingering damage as he mixes it up anew, staying out of range of kicks and even managing to unbalance Riki in the corner. He connects with a jab as Riki advances, and his frustrated opponent seeks retribution by throwing knees from behind as the referee tries to pull him away. This results in a break in the action, and when the fight recommences, Ewald takes more of a proactive approach to hitting Riki in the face. Tadakatsu is able to stonewall a sidekick, but otherwise throws little more than low kicks. After taking an accidental elbow to the face during a backfist, he lands more dirty knee strikes. An attempted left hook turns into a clinch, and Ewald goes down following more hard knees. The referee chooses not to rule it a knockdown. The low kicks seem to be taking a toll on both of the circling fighters, who now take more time to choose their strikes. Riki in particular drops his gloves at any opportunity, but Ewald can't quite take advantage because his punches have lost their accuracy. Round 3. The fighters measure each other from afar before Riki blocks a spinning backfist. He takes a sharp snap kick to the ribs, then manages to grab Ewald's leg for a takedown, likely evening out the judges' scorecards. He catches his opponent again and knees him repeatedly as he goes down, but Steve anticipates a foul and manages to avoid most of a grounded kick. The fighters immediately tie up again and Ewald opts to just pull Riki to the mat. Ewald lands a perfect roundhouse kick across his opponent's face, but Riki absorbs it. The foreigner attempts a throw of his own, but Tadakatsu remains on his feet. Riki grabs Ewald and Steve just throws himself down rather than risk being kneed again. There's a close exchange where the fighters trade punches, then Riki avoids a charging attack. He baits his opponent with lowered gloves, and this seems to work when Steve comes forward and gets caught in the same hold as before. Foregoing all pretension, Riki blatantly hits Ewald in the back of the head, a surefire foul in any other promotion, but the referee doesn't seem to mind. Steve seems to land a spinning back kick in the corner, but Riki comes back with a clubbing punch that's nevertheless returned with a straight left. Riki catches Steve again and ups the ridiculousness with first a forearm and then a headbutt to the back of his opponent's head. I genuinely don't know whether the referee admonishes him or is checking to see whether his forehead is injured. In the match's final minute, Ewald barely ducks out of the way of a spinning backfist and possibly catches an elbow in the process. For the umpteenth time, he finds himself in a compromised position and apparently decides to just timber to the mat. He's on his feet for mere moments before Riki catches him again, but Steve's no longer relying on the referee and responds to the knees with some illegal elbows before being pushed down. It happens again moments later, and when Ewald ends up on his knees resisting a takedown attempt, the official has the sense to push between them and avert another grounded strike. The match ends seconds thereafter. In a surprise verdict, both fighters have their hands raised as the bout is declared a draw. To the credit of Tadakatsu Riki, he demonstrates some sportsmanship before the fighters leave the ring. I'm not going to pretend to understand the ruling and I won't attempt to guess the scorecards. It's difficult to say what was counted as a shoot, and I have no idea whether any of the fouls were penalized. Again, if this were any other promotion, the fouls alone would have cost Riki the match, but as this is an irregular shootboxing bout, I hope viewers will forgive me for failing to analyze this. If this feels like I'm giving the promotion a pass, know that Steve Ewald did the same. I haven't found any information on the rest of his career, but he returned to Tokyo less than a year later, now with proper tights, for a match with Naoyuki Taira. We've reached the main event, with both sides sending out ostensibly their best fighters to leave an impression on the audience. Team Canada unleashes its captain, Dennis Crawford, while shootboxing sends out its founder, Takeshi Caesar. It will be 3 rounds in the hawkweight division, or super middleweight category. I spoke about Tomofumi Murata earlier, but what I haven't mentioned is his record of 15-0 with 8 knockouts, and his status as the reigning hawkweight champion. Additionally, Caesar has been at the forefront of trying to make shootboxing an internationally focused endeavor. His heavier build allowed him to draw from a larger talent pool, and most of his matches of 1987 have seen him facing opponents from abroad. Crawford enters as the most experienced fighter of the show, with a career of 28-1 with 20 knockouts, and carrying the NAKBA's super middleweight championship. Originally a kung fu stylist, Crawford had been active in kickboxing since the 70s, and had in fact been handpicked to represent the WKA alongside Benny Urquidez, Don Wilson and Graciela Casillas for a major Hong Kong show. He earned lasting acclaim with a controversial decision loss to Peter Cunningham earlier this decade, and would eventually capture major gold by becoming the WKA World Welterweight Champion in 1993. He is by far the most credible member of Team Canada, and likely a worthy opponent for the man he's facing. Round 1. Caesar defends well against Crawford's boxing but seems a little surprised when he takes a low kick. He stays on the defensive for most of the first minute, absorbing as much as he blocks and failing to get much out of a clinch. Crawford is looking very accurate, but he performs an accidental headbutt which pauses the action. Caesar switches tactics, letting Dennis come forward while countering with kicks, including a roundhouse to the head. He knocks Crawford off balance with a hook to the dome, but Dennis remains strong and presses on. The sheer amount of headshots that Caesar is able to absorb is impressive, and his tactic appears to be to frustrate Crawford into leaving himself open for counterstrikes. His low kicks start to hurt Dennis about 4 minutes in, and Caesar takes advantage to bully him against the ropes. After the bell rings, Crawford hobbles back to his corner, already displaying the damage inflicted by his opponent's low kicks. This is an extremely troubling state for the super middleweight champion, who needs to call on all of his remaining fortitude if he hopes to make it through the fight. Round 2. Crawford is slow to return to the action, his cornerman buying him time by engaging the referee. Caesar urges his opponent on and apparently promises to go easy on the low kicks, after which the fight resumes. He instead lays in with heavy kicks to the body. Crawford regroups and unloads a barrage of punches that back his opponent into the ropes, but Takeshi is unaffected. He resists a takedown attempt, and a few moments later sends Dennis to the mat with a kick to the thigh. Crawford's corner throws in the towel, but in a display of bravery drawing applause from the audience, the Canadian refuses the stoppage. He requires the referee's help to return to his feet, and after retrieving his mouthguard, he finally returns to action. Caesar's kicks have never looked stiffer, and in desperation, Crawford goes for broke with a spinning back kick. It doesn't connect, and he finds himself taking punches and knees in the corner. Caesar is clearly just looking to extend the match for as long as possible when he backs off of his own accord. But Crawford is already at the end of his rope following a punch to the face. He tries to rise, but even the referee's leniency isn't enough to help him beat the count, and he loses by knockout at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Caesar Takeshi has won. The match, which I had expected to be the most competitive of the night, ended up being one of the most painfully one-sided. Takeshi Caesar isn't guilty of the same fouling as his compatriots, but he controlled the match to the point of embarrassing his opponent. I have tremendous respect for Dennis Crawford, but his punches just couldn't slow down his opponent, and like many Western boxers, he wasn't prepared for Caesar's level of low kicks. Caesar continued to compete for the immediate future, but as his promotion grew, he focused more on his role as a promoter, and eventually fought his retirement match in 1990. He expanded his shootboxing empire with the establishment of the World Shootboxing Association, and repeatedly collaborated with the burgeoning martial arts leagues, Rings and Pancrase. In the new millennium, the company's S-Cup tournament developed into one of the most prestigious events in all of kickboxing, helping to establish the legend of fighters like Boka Bonchamek and Andy Sauer. To this day, Caesar himself remains one of the most enduring kickboxing promoters in Japan. Issue Kaku Togizan 7 isn't required viewing, and your enjoyment of it will depend on how exciting you find one-sided matches, and your tolerance for shootboxing standards of officiating. That said, given how important the company would become in the makeup of Japanese kickboxing, it's certainly interesting to take a look back and witness their formative stage. Check out these matches if you're a fan of the competitors or if they otherwise sound interesting.